But our problems didn't end there. It was the fresh, open flowers that were needed, for it was these that were always shown in the Egyptian paintings. Would the lilies recover from their journey and flower? And when they did, would it be in time for the planned date of our investigation? For the blue lily, flowers only once a year, and each flower head opens for just 3 days. Our luck was in, however, and we eventually managed to harvest 19 flowers. But how did the ancient Egyptians consume them? In party scenes, the lilies are often associated with wine, here actually wrapped around a wine jar. The lilies were therefore prepared by soaking them in wine. We knew from botanical studies that the blue lily contained a compound, nuciferine, that is soluble in alcohol. But other chemicals of the same group are not known to be psychoactive. However, based on its molecular structure, Susan Duty thought it possible that it could have psychoactive effects. If so, these might operate in 2 quite different directions.
If we try and consider how the blue lily is going to affect behaviour, we have to consider that on the one hand it may cause sedation, but on the other hand it may cause arousal and excitement.
That evening, the entire consignment of blue lily flowers harvested over the last few days had been packed and sent off to Hammerwood. But there were disagreements as to whether they would have any effects. Michael Carmichael was convinced that the blue lily was indeed a drug.
The evidence is abundant, and it is clear that the ancient Egyptians were aware of the psychoactive properties of the plant. This is because it is frequently depicted directly in context with other known powerful psychoactive plants. In fact, these depictions are elaborate and prolific, particularly in the tomb of Tutankhamun.
But as an Egyptologist, Alan was reluctant to accept Michael's position and preferred to demand written evidence that the ancient Egyptians knew about the psychoactive effects of the blue lily, which, he claimed, had not so far been discovered.
There is no proof in the papyri or indeed in any other Egyptological source that the ancient Egyptians were aware of any psychoactive properties that the blue lily may possess.
If the lily is not understood to be psychoactive in Egypt, Alan, which is your position, I think it would be, I think you're walking in very dangerous territory there. The evidence, it should speak for itself.
I think it does.
Well, I hope you're not painting yourself into a very tight corner.
I think this is an area where or rather these are several areas where we're going to have to agree to disagree.
Late that night, the consignment of blue lily flowers finally arrived. Tomorrow, Robert and Marie would eat and drink its contents. But what did the flask really contain? Nothing even remotely psychoactive? Or, just possibly, a forgotten drug that might reveal an entirely new picture of how the ancient Egyptians lived, how they parted, and what their religion was really like. The following morning, the precious harvest of blue lily flowers was unpacked, and work began on the task of preparing them for the day's experiment. We had gathered to investigate an ancient mystery. Is the blue water lily a lost drug plant, once beloved by the ancient Egyptians? Could it be that today our 2 volunteers might step through a doorway and see the world as it might once have been seen in the time of the pharaohs? This would be the very first controlled scientific test of the blue lily, so no one could tell us with any certainty what effects it might have. Very possibly none at all, but equally possibly dangerous effects. So before our experiment could begin, our volunteers were given a basic medical examination. In the garden, Robert and Marie looked forward to the day ahead with mixed feelings.
Woke up this morning. First thing I did was call my father, who obviously thinks I'm completely mad. And after that, the realisation hit me that, yes, we were actually coming out here today, and we were going to be taking this plant. I think if one line of argument is that the Egyptians were sort of great party animals and this was used as part of that, then you've got to presume it's got to be a good feeling if it happens.
We don't know exactly how you make this special concoction, so a lot could go wrong, a lot could have gone wrong, but I'm sceptical anyway, so we'll see. It could be like, munching daffodils. Nothing happened. Not that I've done that.
There were several steps to take before the experiment could begin. First, the lily flowers had to be removed from the wine. In theory, if there were active chemicals in the flowers, these should have been extracted by the alcohol. The plan was that Robert and Marie would drink this wine once the flowers had been removed. Only 19 flowers had been harvested. There was no way of telling whether this would be enough to produce an effect. So we proceeded with the utmost care, collecting every last drop of extract. As we worked, we were acutely aware of the flower's rarity, and that the last time the blue lily had been prepared in this way could very possibly have been 1,000 years before the Roman Empire. Preliminary tests had also to be made so that we could measure any changes Robert and Marie might experience. To measure any changes in alertness, Robert was shown a red dot which flickered with varying speeds. If his alertness increased having taken the lily, Robert would be able to detect higher frequencies of flicker.
How your emotional state is.
Susan's next test would detect any changes in activity in the visual centres of the brain.
Now what you've got to do here is to actually read not the word in this instance, but the colour that the word is written in. Right? So in other words, although this says red, I want you to say green and to click on the appropriate coloured box at the same time.
Okay. Green, green, red, blue, green, yellow, red, yellow, green, yellow, red, green, blue.
For her final test, Susan had decided to track any emotional changes that Marie might experience.
Okay, so what I want you to do then is to actually go along these one at a time and simply circle where you feel the most appropriate level of that particular emotion is. So let's start with interested. How interested do you feel at the moment?
I think you'd have to give that an extremely interested.
Okay, good. What about distressed?
A little distressed. A little distressed.
The next one is your state of upset.
I don't think I'm upset.
Marie answered with care, but how would her responses change having taken the lily? By mid-afternoon, everything was at last ready for the experiment. Our preliminary tests were complete, and the flowers had been removed from the wine, which was now ready to be drunk.
Because no one's done it before, it does give you a bit of a Star Trek thing, you know, like to go, but no man has gone before. So very naff, but something along those lines, I think. Yeah, it's like temptation.
Making history. Perhaps.
Just after 5, we gathered for the experiment. Outside, it had started to rain heavily. With a few minutes to go before drinking the lily extract, Robert and Marie were feeling understandably apprehensive.
How are you feeling?
Quite nervous.
Quite nervous.
I'm not feeling nervous anymore, actually. I think I'm just completely numb.